The dead ship floated in the cold darkness of space like a metal tomb. It had been drifting for over 200 years, its engines silent and its lights dark. The alien research vessel Stellar Dawn moved slowly toward the massive human ship, its blue scanning beams cutting through the black void. Zektar pressed his four-fingered hand against the viewing window of the bridge. His large, round eyes reflected the distant stars as he watched the dead vessel grow larger. The human ship was unlike anything he had ever seen. Where alien ships were smooth and curved, this one was all sharp angles and heavy armor plating. It looked like it was built for war, not exploration. Fascinating, Zektar whispered to himself. His translator device buzzed softly at his throat, converting his thoughts into the common galactic language. The humans built their ships so differently from us. Commander Velinar walked up behind him. She was tall and elegant with silver skin that gleamed under the bridge lights. Her species, the Zephyrians, were known for their advanced technology and peaceful nature. She looked at the human ship with mild interest. Nothing more. It is just a dead hulk, she said in her musical voice. The humans have been extinct for centuries. There is nothing valuable here except scrap metal and old data files. But think of what we could learn, Zektar replied. His excitement was clear in his voice. As the ship's science officer, he lived for moments like this. It could be the most complete human vessel ever found. We might finally understand how they lived, how they thought. Velinara nodded slowly. She did not share his excitement, but she understood the scientific value. The Galactic Council would want a full report on any human artifacts they found. Humans were a mystery to the galaxy. They had appeared briefly on the edge of known space, established a few colonies, and then vanished without a trace. Very well, she said. Take a boarding party and search the vessel. Be careful. We do not know what hazards might still be active after all these years. 2 hours later, Zektar floated through the airlock connecting the two ships. He wore a full environmental suit, its lights cutting through the darkness inside the human vessel. Behind him, 3 other scientists followed, their equipment floating beside them in the zero gravity. The inside of the human ship was cold and dark. Emergency lighting flickered weakly along the corridors, powered by some backup system that had somehow survived 2 centuries. The air was thin but breathable, though their suits filtered it anyway as a precaution. The ship is called New Horizon, announced Dr. Keshlin, reading from her scanner. She was an Al-3, a species known for their medical knowledge. Her tentacles moved gracefully as she worked her instruments. According to the ship records, it was a colony vessel carrying 10,000 humans to establish a new settlement. 10,000, Zektar repeated in wonder. The largest human group ever recorded. They moved deeper into the ship, following the main corridor toward the center. The walls were covered with symbols and writing in the human language. Most of it was simple directions and safety warnings, but some appeared to be personal messages. Left by the crew, here called out one of the other scientists. I found something. They followed him to a large door marked with warning symbols. Beyond it lay a vast chamber filled with rows upon rows of white pods. Each pod was about the size of a human body, with a small window at one end. Most of the pods were dark and empty, their occupants long dead. Cryogenic storage, Dr. Keshlin said, her voice full of awe. They tried to preserve themselves during the journey. Zektar moved between the rows of dead pods, his heart heavy. 10,000 humans had climbed into these devices, hoping to wake up on a new world. Instead, they had died in their sleep when the ship's power failed. It was a tragedy beyond imagination. Wait, Dr. Keshelin called out. This one is still active. They rushed to where she stood near the back of the chamber. One pod among thousands still hummed with power. Its systems blinked steadily, and frost covered its small viewing window. Inside, they could see the shadowy outline of a human figure. Incredible, Zektar breathed. After all this time, one survived. Dr. Keshelin ran her scanners over the pod. The occupant is alive, but in deep hibernation. Life signs are stable. The pod's power cell is nearly drained, but it has enough energy to complete the revival process. They cleared the frost from the viewing window and peered inside. The human was male, wearing what appeared to be a dark blue uniform. His face was peaceful, as if he were simply sleeping. His hair was short and dark, and his skin had the pale color of someone who had not seen sunlight in a very long time. He looks so young, one of the scientists observed. The cryogenic process stops aging, Dr. Keshelin explained. Is probably the same age now as when he went to sleep 2 centuries ago. It was different. From the civilian clothes they had seen on other human artifacts, this uniform had patches and symbols that suggested military service. He was a soldier, Zektar realized. Just a human commander. Velinara's voice came through their communicators. She was monitoring their progress from the stellar dawn. Wake him up. The Galactic Council will want to study the first living human ever found.
Out, Doctor.
Keshelin hesitated. Are we sure this is safe? We know nothing about human diseases or their psychological state. He will wake up to find his entire species extinct, and his mission failed. He is one individual among billions of galactic citizens, Velinara replied coldly. He poses no threat to anyone. Proceed with the revival. Dr. Keshelin connected her medical equipment to the pod's systems. The process was delicate. Human cryogenic technology was primitive compared to modern galactic standards. But it had kept this man alive when more advanced systems had failed. Slowly, the pod began to warm. Ice crystals melted and ran down the sides. The human's life signs grew stronger as his body temperature rose. After an hour, the pod hissed open, releasing a cloud of cold vapor. The human's eyes opened slowly. They were brown, like most of his species. But there was something sharp and alert about them that made Zektar slightly uncomfortable. The man blinked several times, then tried to sit up. Easy, Dr. Keshelin said gently, using her translator to speak in the human language. You are safe. You have been asleep for a long time. The human looked around at the assembled aliens. His expression was calm, but his eyes were constantly moving, taking in every detail of his surroundings. Where am I? He asked.
His voice
Was rough from long sleep. You were aboard your colony ship, the New Horizon, Zektar explained. We are scientists from the Galactic Council. We found your ship drifting in space. You have been in cryogenic sleep for over 200 years. The human absorbed this information without visible emotion. What happened to the others? My crew? I am sorry, Dr. Keshelin said softly. The ship's power failed long ago. You were the only survivor. The human closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them again, there was grief there, but also something else. Something that made the alien scientist take a step back without knowing why. My name is Jake Martinez, the human said simply. I was a maintenance worker on this ship. Thank you for saving me. But Zektar noticed that Jake's eyes had already counted the number of aliens in the room, noted the positions of the exits, and cataloged every piece of equipment within reach. For a maintenance worker, he moved with unusual grace and awareness. They had awakened a human, but they had no idea what they had truly found. Jake woke up in a room that was nothing like his old ship. The walls were curved and smooth, glowing with a soft blue light that seemed to come from everywhere at once. The bed was comfortable, much better than anything he had known on the New Horizon. Through a large window, he could see stars moving slowly past. He sat up carefully, testing his body. The aliens had done a good job bringing him back to life. His muscles were stiff but strong. His mind was clear. Most importantly, he felt no pain. Whatever medical technology they had used was far beyond anything humans had developed. The door opened with a soft sound, and Dr. Keshelin entered. Her tentacles moved in what Jake had learned was a friendly greeting among her people. She carried a device that looked like a cross between a medical scanner and a computer tablet. Good morning, Jake, she said. Her translator made her voice sound almost human, though there was still something musical about it. How are you feeling today? Much better, thank you, Jake replied. He had learned to speak slowly and clearly so the translation devices could keep up. The room is very comfortable. I am glad. We want you to feel safe here. Dr. Keshelin approached his bed with her scanner active. May I check your vital signs? Your body is still recovering from the long sleep. Jake nodded and held still while she worked. He had discovered that cooperation made the aliens trust him more. They seemed to think he was grateful and harmless, which was exactly what he wanted them to think. Remarkable, Dr. Keshelin muttered as she read her scanner. Your bone density is 30% higher than most species. Your muscle fibers are much more efficient than ours. And your reflexes. She looked up at him with wonder. Jake, how strong were humans compared to other species? Jake shrugged, playing the part of someone who had never thought about it. I don't know. We never met other species before you found me. I guess we were strong enough to do our jobs. What was your job exactly? You said you were a maintenance worker? I fix things, Jake said simply. I said equipment, whatever broke down on the ship. It was important work. If something broke in space, people could die. Dr. Keshelin made notes on her device. Jake could see her writing, but the alien symbols meant nothing to him. He wondered what she was really recording about him. After she left, Zektar arrived with breakfast. The alien scientist had become something like a friend over the past 3 weeks. He brought Jake food and news from around the ship, and in return, Jake answered his endless questions about human culture. The food today is from my homeworld, Zektar said proudly, setting down a tray. I thought you might enjoy trying something new. Jake looked at the colorful mixture on his plate. It looked like fruit, but it glowed slightly and smelled like flowers. Thank you. You didn't have to do this. I wanted to. You're the only human in the galaxy, Jake. That makes you very special to those of us who study alien cultures. Jake ate carefully. The food was actually quite good, though very different from anything humans would make. Zektar, can I ask you something? Of course. How many species are there in the galaxy? And how do they all get along? Zektar's eyes lit up. He loved talking about galactic civilization. There are over 400 known species in the Galactic Council. Most of them are peaceful traders and explorers, share technology and knowledge freely. What about conflicts? Wars? Wars. Zektar looked confused. There have been no wars in over 600 years. Why would species fight when they can talk to each other? The Council settles all disputes through discussion and compromise. Jake nodded as if this made perfect sense to him. Studham sighed. He was amazed. These aliens had forgotten how to fight. They had become so civilized that they could not imagine violence as a solution to problems. That sounds wonderful, Jake said. Humans had conflicts sometimes. We were not as advanced as you. That is understandable. Young species often go through violent phases before they mature. It is sad that humans did not survive long enough to outgrow that stage. After breakfast, Zektar took Jake on a tour of the ship. This had become a daily routine. Jake asked innocent questions about how things worked, and Zektar happily explained everything. The alien had no idea he was giving military intelligence to someone trained to use it. This is our security center, Zektar said, leading Jake into a room full of monitors and control panels. From here, we can monitor all activity on the ship. Jake looked around casually. The security systems were a joke. They were designed to track people and prevent accidents, not to stop intruders. The guards were scientists with basic training, not soldiers. Their weapons were tools meant for emergencies, not combat. Very impressive, Jake said. How many security officers do you have? 6 on this shift, 8 on the night shift? Though honestly, we rarely have any problems. Space is very peaceful these days. They continued the tour to the engine room. Jake paid careful attention to the power systems and structural weak points. If he ever needed to disable this ship, he now knew exactly how to do it.
Oh.
The quantum drive is our most advanced system, Zektar explained proudly. It allows us to travel between star systems in just a few days, much faster than the chemical rockets your people used. Amazing, Jake said. I never imagined such technology was possible. That afternoon, Commander Velinara came to visit him. She entered his room with 2 guards, though they stayed by the door and looked bored. Jake could tell she did not consider him a threat. Human, she said, not bothering to use his name. I have come to inform you of your situation. Jake stood respectfully. Yes, Commander. The Galactic Council has decided what to do with you. You will remain on this ship as a subject of scientific study. In return, you will receive food, shelter, and protection. This is generous, considering you have no legal status in galactic law. I understand, Jake said quietly. I am grateful for your kindness. Velinara looked at him with mild contempt. You are a relic of a dead species. Your people were too primitive and violent to survive in the galaxy. Consider yourself fortunate that we are more civilized than your ancestors were." Jake kept his expression neutral, but inside, anger burned cold and steady. This arrogant alien thought humans were weak because they were extinct. She had no idea what humans were capable of when pushed too far. "I will try to be worthy of your generosity," he said. After she left, Jake sat alone in his room and planned. The aliens thought they had rescued a grateful survivor. They treated him well because they saw him as harmless and interesting. They had no idea they were keeping a weapon in a cage they thought was a guest room. Jake had been a soldier in the human colonial defense force. His unit had been trained for the worst possible scenarios fighting in space. Surviving behind enemy lines, operating without support or supplies. The maintenance worker's story was a cover identity, something to make him seem ordinary and unthreatening. But Jake was patient. He would learn everything he could about these aliens and their technology, would map their weaknesses and understand their culture. And when the time came, he would decide what to do with that knowledge. For now, he would be their pet human. He would answer their questions and eat their food and pretend to be grateful for their mercy. But Jake Martinez had not survived. Military training and 200 years in space. Just to become a laboratory specimen. The aliens thought they had found the last human. What they had actually found was something much more dangerous. Just didn't know it yet. The alarm woke Jake from a deep sleep. Red lights flashed in his room, while a loud sound echoed through the ship. He rolled out of bed and was on his feet in seconds, his body moving with trained reflexes. The emergency lighting cast strange shadows on the curved walls. Jake pressed his ear to the door. He could hear footsteps running in the corridor outside, along with voices speaking in several alien languages. The translation devices were having trouble keeping up with the rapid, panicked speech. Unknown ships approaching, he heard someone say they are not responding to our communications. Jake smiled grimly. After 6 weeks of peaceful routine, something interesting was finally happening. The door opened, and Zektar rushed in. The alien scientist looked terrified, his large eyes wide with fear. "Jake, you must stay in your room. We're under attack by pirates." "Pirates?" Jake asked, pretending to be confused and scared. "What do they want? They raid research ships?" "For valuable data and equipment, do not worry. Our security team will handle this." Jake almost laughed. He had seen the security team. They were scientists playing at being guards. They had never faced real violence in their lives. "Should I hide?" Jake asked, playing his part. "Yes, stay here and lock the door. This will be over soon." Zektar left quickly, and Jake could hear him telling other crew members to secure their stations. Jake waited 30 seconds, then opened his door and stepped into the corridor. The ship shook as something heavy struck its hull. Jake felt the impact through his feet and knew it was a boarding pod. The pirates were not trying to destroy the ship. They wanted to take it intact. Jake moved quietly through the corridors, staying in the shadows. His bare feet made no sound. On the metal floor, he'd memorized the ship's layout during his weeks of guided tours. And now that knowledge served him well. He reached the security center just as the lights went out. Emergency power kicked in a moment later, but the damage was done. The pirates had disabled the main power grid. Jake could hear alien voices in the distance, shouting orders and coordinates. Through the security center's window, he watched the alien guards try to organize a defense. They held their weapons awkwardly, like tools rather than weapons. Their movements were clumsy and uncertain. They had trained for this moment. But training was not the same as experience. The first pirate came around the corner like a shadow. He was tall and thin, with gray skin and long arms. His species was called the Keth, and they were known for being thieves and smugglers. The pirate carried a real weapon, not the emergency tools the ship's crew used. The alien guards saw him and raised his weapon. "Stop. You are not authorized to be here." The pirate laughed and shot him. The guard fell to the floor, crying out in pain and shock. The other guards tried to return fire, but they were too slow and too scared. Within minutes, the pirates had control of the security center. Jake watched from the shadows as more pirates boarded the ship. They moved with the confidence of people who had done this many times before. They knew exactly where to go and what to do. The ship's crew was completely outmatched. "Secure the research labs," the lead pirate ordered.
Kill
"Anyone who resists. Take the scientists alive if they cooperate." Jake followed them as they moved through the ship. Pirates were professionals, but they were not soldiers. They relied on fear and superior weapons to control their victims. Against the peaceful aliens, that was enough. He watched them round. Up the crew in the main laboratory, Dr. Keshelin was there, her tentacles trembling with fear.
Akdar stood protectively in front of her.
But Jake could see he was terrified too. "Where is your most valuable research?" the lead pirate demanded. "We know you have been studying something important." "We are just a survey mission," Zektar lied. "You have no valuable data." The pirate struck him across the face with his weapon. Zektar fell to the floor, blue blood running from his nose. "Do not lie to me. We monitored your communications. You found something big 3 weeks ago." "Where is it?" Jake realized they were talking about him. Word of the living human had somehow reached the pirates. They'd come here specifically to capture him. Dr. Keshelin looked around frantically. "He is not here. The human is in his quarters." "Human?" The pirate's eyes went wide. "You found a living human?" "Yes, but he is just a refugee. He has no value to anyone." The pirate laughed harshly. "Are you insane? Do you know what collectors will pay for a living human? He is worth more than your entire ship." 2 pirates left to search for Jake while the others continued questioning the crew. Jake followed the search team, staying just out of sight. When they reached his quarters and found it empty, they began searching room by room Jake had seen. Enough. These aliens had saved his life and treated him with kindness. They were naive and weak, but they were not evil. The pirates, on the other hand, were predators who hurt innocent people for profit. It was time to stop pretending to be helpless. Jake moved through the ship's maintenance tunnels. Space is too small for most aliens, but perfect for a human. He reached the engine room ahead of the pirates and waited in the shadows, above the main power coupling. When the first pirate entered the engine room, Jake dropped silently behind him. The alien never knew what hit him. Jake's arm went around his throat, cutting off his air and his ability to call for help. In 15 seconds, the pirate was unconscious. In 30 seconds, he was dead. Jake took the pirate's weapon and checked its charge. The weapon was simple, but effective. More importantly, it was designed for killing, not just stopping threats. The second pirate came looking for his partner a few minutes later. "Vex, where are you? We need to check the lower levels." Jake stepped out of the shadows behind him. "Your friend is busy," he said quietly. The pirate spun around, raising his weapon, but Jake was already moving. He grabbed the alien's wrist and twisted, breaking the bones with a sound like snapping wood. The pirate screamed and dropped his weapon. Jake caught it before it hit the floor. "Please," the pirate begged. "I surrender. Do not kill me." "How many of you are there?" Jake asked. 12. "We have 12 on the ship." "Where are the others?" "Main lab, security center, and bridge." "Please, I am just following orders." Jake looked at the alien's frightened face. The pirate was young, probably not much older than Jake had been when he first joined the military. But he had made his choice when he decided to hurt innocent people. "You chose the wrong ship to raid," Jake said, and broke the pirate's neck. "Move through the ship like a ghost, using the maintenance tunnels and service corridors to avoid detection." He had memorized every passage during his weeks of exploration. Now that knowledge became a weapon. He found the next pirate in the security center, trying to access the ship's computer systems. Jake came up behind him and used the alien's own weapon to kill him silently. The body fell forward onto the control panel. One by one, Jake hunted down the remaining pirates. He used the ship's own systems against them, sealing doors to trap them and cutting power to areas where they hid. He turned their own tactics against them, using fear and surprise to break their coordination. The last 3 pirates were in the laboratory with the hostages. Jake could hear them arguing about what to do next. They had lost contact with the rest of their team and were starting to panic. "Something is wrong," one of them said. "The others should have reported back by now. Maybe they found the human and are securing him." Another suggested. Jake stepped into the laboratory, his weapon ready. The hostages looked at him in shock. Dr. Keshelin's tentacles went rigid with surprise. Zektar's mouth fell open.
Ow.
Me, Jake said calmly to the pirates. I am the human you are looking for. But he was no longer the helpless refugee they expected. He was something else entirely. Something that had been sleeping in the darkness, waiting for the right moment to wake up. The pirates raised their weapons, but they were too slow. Jake had been trained for this moment his entire life. They were just criminals who had gotten lucky until now. Their luck had just run out. The three remaining pirates stared at Jake in shock. They had expected to find a helpless human hiding in fear. Instead, they faced someone who moved like a predator and held their own weapons with deadly skill. Possible, one of the pirates whispered, humans are extinct. They were weak. Jake smiled, but there was no warmth in it. We got better. The first pirate raised his weapon, but Jake was already moving. He dove to the side as energy bolts flew past him, then rolled behind. A lab table. The alien hostages screamed and scattered, diving for cover behind equipment and walls. Jake popped up from behind the table and fired twice. Both shots found their targets. The first pirate fell backwards, his weapon clattering across the floor. The second pirate tried to run, but Jake's shot caught him in the back before he reached the door. The last pirate dropped his weapon and raised his hands. I surrender. Please do not kill me. Jake kept his weapon trained on the alien while he checked on the hostages. Dr. Keshelin was unhurt, but shaking badly. Zektar had a cut on his face, but was otherwise fine. The other scientists huddled together, looking at Jake with a mixture of gratitude and fear. Are you all right? Jake asked them. Yes, thanks to you, Zektar said quietly. But Jake, how did you do that? You moved so fast, and you fought like a soldier, Jake finished. 'Cause that is what I am. The truth was finally out. Jake no longer needed to pretend to be a simple maintenance worker. The pirates had forced his hand, and now everyone could see what he really was. Dr. Keshelin stared at him with new understanding. All those tests I ran on you, your reflexes, your muscle density, your bone structure, you were built for fighting. Humans had to fight to survive, Jake explained. Our world was dangerous. Our history was full of wars. We learned to be very good at violence because the alternative was death. Commander Velinara's voice came through the communication system. Security teams, report your status immediately. Jake picked up a communicator from one of the dead pirates. This is Jake. The pirates are dead. The hostages are safe. There was a long silence. Then Velinara's voice returned, colder than before. Human, you will remain where you are until security arrives. 20 minutes later, Velinara entered the laboratory with 6 guards. They all had their weapons drawn and pointed at Jake. He had placed his captured weapon on the floor and stood with his hands visible. But the guards still looked nervous. Velinara walked around the room, stepping over the bodies of the dead pirates. Her silver skin had turned pale, and her elegant features were tight with anger and fear. 12 pirates, she said finally, dead, killed by one human who we thought was helpless. They were going to hurt innocent people, Jake said simply. I stopped them. You lied to us. You said you were a maintenance worker. I was a maintenance worker. I also happened to be a soldier. Most humans could do more than one job. Dr. Keshelin stepped forward, her tentacles moving in agitation. Commander, he saved our lives. Without Jake, we would all be dead or captured. That is not the point, Velinara snapped. He deceived us. He pretended to be harmless while planning who knows what. Jake met her angry gaze calmly. I never planned to hurt any of you. You treated me well, so I had no reason to harm you. I was not going to let criminals murder my friends. The word friends seemed to surprise the aliens. Zektar looked touched, while Dr. Keshelin's tentacles softened their movements. Guards escort the human to secure containment, Velinara ordered. Wait, Dr. Keshelin said. Commander, we need to study what happened here. Jake's abilities could be invaluable to galactic security. Abilities are exactly why he is dangerous, Velinara replied. One human killed 12 armed pirates without breaking a sweat. What would happen if there were more humans? What would happen if they decided we were their enemies? Jake was taken to a different room, one with stronger locks and no windows. The guards who escorted him kept their distance and watched him carefully. Word of what he had done was already spreading through the ship. Over the next few days, Jake received many visitors. Scientists wanted to study him, security officers wanted to interview him, and government officials wanted to question him about human military capabilities. Admiral Quinder arrived from the nearest council station. He was an elderly Aldari, with silver tentacles and wise eyes. Unlike Velinara, he seemed more curious than afraid. "So you are the human who has caused such a stir," the Admiral said, settling into a chair across from Jake. "Tell me about your people's military forces." "Why do you want to know?" Jake asked. "'Cause 3 days ago we received disturbing news. A species called the Krellin Empire has attacked several outer colonies. Our peacekeeping forces were defeated. Easily. We need to understand how to fight back." Jake leaned forward with interest. "The Krellins are attacking Council territory." "Yes, they ignore our diplomatic attempts and respond only with violence. Our forces have no experience with real combat. We train for peacekeeping and disaster relief, not war. And now you want me to teach you how to fight?" Admiral Quinder nodded slowly. "The Council is desperate. We have technology but no knowledge of tactics. You clearly understand combat in ways we do not." Jake was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "What would you give me in return? What do you want?" "Freedom. Not just for me, but recognition that if other humans are found, they should be treated as equals, not specimens. That is, possible. If you help us defeat the Krellins," Jake smiled. "Admiral, I will teach your people how to fight. But I should warn you, once you learn these skills, your civilization will never be the same." The training began the next week. Jake was brought to a council military base where he met the officers who would lead their forces against the Krellins. They were scientists and explorers who had been given military ranks. But they knew nothing about actual warfare. Jake started with basic concepts. "Forget everything you know about fair play and honor," he told them. "In real combat, the only rule is to win. The enemy will lie, cheat, and use any advantage they can find. You must be willing to do the same." The alien officers were shocked by his teachings. They had expected military strategy to be clean and organized, like their scientific methods. Instead, Jake taught them about deception, ambushes, and psychological warfare. "But that is not honorable," one officer protested. "We cannot attack enemies who are not ready to fight." "The Krellins attacked your colonies without warning," Jake replied. "Did they care about honor then? Your choice is simple. Learn to fight like humans, or watch your people die like victims." The lessons continued for weeks. Jake taught them how to read terrain, how to set traps, and how to use fear as a weapon. He showed them how to coordinate attacks and how to retreat when necessary. Most importantly, he taught them to think like predators instead of prey. The first real test came when the Krellins attacked a major trading station. The Council fleet, now trained by Jake, met them in battle. The results were devastating for the Krellins. They'd expected another easy victory against peaceful aliens. Instead, they faced tactics they had never seen before. The Council forces used Jake's teachings to devastating effect. They set ambushes, used false retreats to lure enemies into traps, and coordinated their attacks with military precision. The Krellin fleet was destroyed. Their surviving ships fled in panic. News of the victory spread quickly through the galaxy. The peaceful Council had suddenly become a military power to be feared. Other aggressive species took notice and began to reconsider their own plans for expansion. But Admiral Quinder was troubled. He visited Jake after the battle, his old face heavy with worry. "We won," the Admiral said. "But at what cost?" "Our people are changing, Jake. They talk about conquest now, not just defense. They want to attack Krellin territory and make them pay for their aggression." Jake nodded sadly. "I warned you this would happen. Once you teach someone to be a weapon, it is hard to make them peaceful again." "What have we done?" Quinder whispered. "You have survived," Jake replied. "The question now is whether you can control what you have become." The alarm started screaming at dawn. Jake woke instantly, his soldier's instincts pulling him from sleep before his mind caught up. Red lights flashed through his quarters on the Council's main space station, and he could hear running footsteps. In the corridors outside, Admiral Quinder's voice came through the communication system, tense and urgent. All senior staff report to the command center immediately. This is not a drill. Jake dressed quickly and made his way through the station. The hallways were full of aliens moving with purpose, but he could see fear in their eyes. Something big was happening. The command center was chaos when he arrived. Dozens of aliens worked at control stations, while massive screens showed star charts and sensor readings. Admiral Quinder stood in the center of it all, his tentacles moving in agitation. Jake, the Admiral called when he saw him. Thank goodness. You are here. We have a problem. What kind of problem? Jake asked, though he already suspected the answer. Admiral Quinder pointed to the main screen. It showed a formation of ships approaching through hyperspace. The ships were sleek and powerful, clearly built for both exploration and war. Jake recognized the design immediately. Human ships, he said quietly. 67 vessels, including battleships and carriers. They will arrive in our space in less than 6 hours. Jake, who are these people? I thought you were the last human alive. Jake stared at the screen, his mind racing. He'd always known this day might come, but seeing it happen was still a shock. They are the second colonial fleet. My colony ship was part of the first wave. The second wave was supposed to follow once we established safe colonies. But your ship failed 200 years ago. Why are they coming now? Because they never received word that we failed, Jake realized. Fleet has been following the original plan. They are coming to check on the colonies and bring reinforcements. Dr. Keshlin hurried into the command center, her scanner in her tentacles. She had become Jake's primary medical researcher over the past months. Her findings had helped train the Council's new military forces. I have been analyzing the ship designs. If these humans are anything like Jake, their military capabilities will be far beyond what we faced with the Krellans. How much beyond? Admiral Quinder asked Jake. The Colonial Defense Force was the best of the best. If they have had 200 years to improve their technology and tactics, they will be unstoppable in a direct fight. Then we must negotiate, Commander Velanara said. She had arrived with a group of Council diplomats. Surely they will be reasonable. Jake looked at her with something like pity. Commander, they are going to find their colony ships destroyed. Or missing. They will find alien species occupying the space they came to claim. And they will find one of their soldiers held prisoner by aliens who have been studying him like a laboratory animal. You were not a prisoner, Velanara protested. You were a guest. Was I free to leave? Velanara did not answer. Admiral Jake continued, the fleet commanders will assume the worst. They will think their people were killed and I was captured. They will demand explanations and reparations. And if they do not get satisfactory answers, they will attack. Admiral Quinder finished. They will destroy this entire sector, Jake corrected. That is what they were trained to do. The hours that followed were tense and desperate. The Council tried everything they could think of. They prepared messages of welcome and friendship. They gathered evidence of Jake's good treatment. Even offered to share technology and resources, but Jake knew it would not be enough. The Colonial Defense Force operated under simple rules: protect human interests, secure human space, and eliminate threats to human survival. The aliens had unknowingly violated all 3 rules. There's one chance, Jake said finally. Let me talk to them, you Admiral Quinder. Look surprised. But you have been away from your people for centuries. Will they listen to you? They will listen to a Colonial Defense Force officer, and I still remember the command codes. An hour before the human fleet arrived, Jake stood on the bridge of the Council's flagship. He wore a simple uniform, not the alien clothes he had grown used to. Admiral Quinder stood beside him, along with Dr. Keshelin and the other senior. Staff, are you sure about this? The Admiral asked. No, Jake admitted, but it is our only chance. The human ships dropped out of hyperspace like falling stars. They were beautiful and terrible, their hulls gleaming with weapons and armor. Jake counted the ship classes and felt his heart sink. This was not just a colonial fleet. This was a full military expedition. Human fleet. This is Admiral Quinder of the Galactic Council, the Admiral broadcast. We welcome you to Council. Space, we have important information about your colonial mission. The response came immediately, cold and professional. Council ships. This is Admiral Lisa Rodriguez of the Human Colonial Defense Force. You will stand down and prepare to be boarded. Any resistance will be met with force. Jake stepped forward and activated his own communicator. Admiral Rodriguez. This is Colonel Jake Martinez. Colonial Defense Force serial number 7749 Delta. I am alive and well aboard the Council flagship. There was a long pause. Then a different voice came through the speakers, older and more cautious. Jake Martinez. You are listed as missing with the New Horizon colony ship? Yes, sir. The ship suffered catastrophic failure and I was the only survivor. The Council forces rescued me and have treated me well. Colonel, are you speaking under duress? Jake looked around at the aliens who had become his friends over the past year. Dr. Keshlin watched him with worried eyes. Zektar stood nearby, hoping for a peaceful resolution. Even Commander Velinara looked concerned. No, sir. I am speaking freely. The Council species are peaceful and have shown me nothing but kindness. I recommend opening diplomatic talks rather than military action. Another pause. Longer this time. Jake could imagine the discussions happening on the human ships. The commanders would be trying to decide if they could trust his words. Colonel Martinez, you will transfer to the flagship immediately for debriefing. Council ships will maintain their positions and make no aggressive moves. Understood, sir. The transfer took an hour. Jake found himself on a human ship for the first time in over 200 years. The corridors were exactly as he remembered them, but the technology was clearly more advanced. The crew members he passed looked at him with curiosity and respect. Admiral Rodriguez was a stern woman with gray hair and sharp eyes. She met Jake in the briefing room, along with her senior staff. Jake saluted smartly, falling back into military protocol as if no time had passed. Colonel, you look remarkably good for someone who has been missing for 2 centuries, the Admiral said. Cryogenic preservation, sir. Aliens have excellent medical technology. Tell me about these aliens. Are they a threat to human expansion? Jake chose his words carefully. They are peaceful by nature, sir. Their technology is advanced, but they have no real military experience. They have been helpful in my recovery and have expressed interest and friendship with humanity. And yet our sensors show they have been fighting wars recently. Council ships with advanced weapons and military formations. That does not sound peaceful to me. Jake's heart sank. Of course, the humans had been monitoring galactic communications. They knew about the war with the Krellans and the Councils. New military capabilities. Oh, that was a defensive action, sir. They were attacked by an aggressive species and asked for my help in training their forces. You trained aliens to fight? The Admiral's voice was dangerously quiet. Yes, sir. Defend themselves against a genuine threat. Colonel, you trained potential enemies of humanity to use military tactics. You gave them knowledge that could be used against us. Jake realized his mistake too late. From the human perspective, he had committed treason. He had armed aliens with human military knowledge, making them a threat to human expansion. Sir, I can explain. You will be confined to quarters pending a full investigation, Admiral Rodriguez said. In the meantime, we will conduct our own evaluation of these council species. Jake was escorted away, leaving the human fleet to make its own decisions about the galaxy they had found. He had tried to bridge the gap between 2 very different civilizations, but he feared he had only made things worse. Hours later, as he sat in his quarters aboard the human flagship, Jake looked out at the stars and wondered what he had really accomplished. He had saved the Council from the Krellans, but in doing so, he had made them a threat to humanity. He had tried to prevent a war, but he might have guaranteed one instead. The galaxy would never be the same. The age of peace was ending, and the age of human expansion was about to begin. Jake Martinez, the last survivor of a failed colony, had become the man who changed everything. He just was not sure if the change would be for better or worse.